very happy to welcome you in this conference. The main topic we are about to tackle together today is a smart way to leverage continuous integration, CI, and continuous delivery, CD, in your mobile app development project. The objective being to speed up and improve your deployment to the stores. Having said that, I also want to tell you, I really hope this presentation will help you on both your current and next projects. My name is Laurent Witt, and I'm an open source evangelist, pre-sales and manager at Genesis. I have a strong experience in several development languages, including Java, Node.js, or JavaScript. Today, I will be hosting this conference with my colleague, Frédéric Lodo, who will help me answer any question you may have after the presentation. To start, let me just have a few words about Genesis, the company I'm working for. We are proud of being the only official Ionic Gold partner here in Europe. We actually offer consulting services, for example, by auditing existing code or defining architectures involving Ionic. But we also deal with off-site development using our team of agile experts. Genesis also has a strong background in data integration and AI. We provide some related training offers and off-the-shelf R&D. Our customers are located in very different places around the globe, of course here in Europe, but also in the US, in Australia, and so on. So now let's start with a short state of the art of mobile development in 2022. One way to look at it is to dive into the daily life of a single mobile app developer or a team and see the challenges we all face every day. First, let's have a look at the three main types of constraints you will face when it comes to developing a mobile app. The first source of pressure you may have to deal with is your management, colleagues, or clients if you work for a third party. They all want quick results, of course. Having some insight of the current state of the job could change the specs during the project or pressure you to quickly deliver a fix or a major version. The second source of stress is often based on the competitors surrounding your company or your client. Let's agree the market in general. So unless you are the only player in your sector, your competitors surely constantly improve their own application, delivering new features, which may lead your customers to buy your competitors' services rather than use. And finally are the end users, the most unstable element in your entire equation. Who could be more creative than a user who will type in a special character precisely where you never imagined it would be done? Or users who will frantically click everywhere because the response time of an action is a little bit too long. Basically, and shortly, the point is to improve your time to market. And there are several options. First, of course, is to use Ionic. Much easier and faster to develop an hybrid app with one code base than to maintain code in two different languages to achieve the same goal. Then there is the possibility to use progressive web apps, PWA. This is clearly an alternative to native or hybrid apps, as you don't have to wait for any form of third-party validation. But if you look into them, you will see that you will face other challenges. The main one is the necessity to take into account the type of browser the end user uses in terms of version and therefore supported features, local storage policies, etc. And finally, you have in-app contents, but that's actually only an answer for marketing content, news, etc. Not really an option if you need to deliver new high-value added features. Last option would be to use microphone front-ends for mobile. To learn more on this, I suggest you to have a look at Ionic portals, for example. Let's have a look to the usual process you have to go through when it comes to developing an app. First, you have to develop your code, but many will argue that it's perhaps the easiest part of the story. The build process can be pretty tedious. For example, if you plan to target the Apple ecosystem, you have to set up a specific environment, including Xcode and macOS, running on Apple hardware. That would be really a pain if you are not familiar with this environment and could lead to additional expenditures for your team if you are not already equipped. Finally, you have to sign, because you cannot deny the paternity of your wonderful code, and to upload it to the stores so that your end user can finally enjoy your creation. The last 3 steps may prove quite difficult, even if you are experienced, and that's because rules change all the time. New steps, information, or format can be requested by Google or Apple. And of course, it's always come up over the worst period of the project, when everyone is pressuring you to deliver quickly the best app you ever made. As you certainly know, third-party validation, especially in Apple ecosystem, can be quite long, up to 2 weeks, for example. And you need to be very cautious in terms of policies, additional information, screenshots, ratings, and security requirements. Now we can really ask ourselves the following questions. Would I try to build a house with a single spoon? I will use a motto to illustrate my point. To go fast and obtain a qualitative result, you need to use the right tools. So I suggest we have a look at what will help you to deliver a mobile app quickly and with a high level of quality. First step in our journey to improve your delivery process, continuous integration, often shortened to CI. In other words, you use a third-party tool to take care of the building process for you and for your entire team if you work with other people on the same project. Let me just give you a few basics around continuous integration. Of course, in this webinar, we have limited time to present you a lot of concepts. So we decided to focus on JetBrains CI called TeamCity, the tool we are currently using within Genesis. But you definitely have other options like GitLab CI, Circle CI, Jenkins, just to name a few. It is all just a matter of tastes and colors, habit, or integration in third-party tools. For example, we decided to use TeamCity because we are using other JetBrains tools inside Genesis. As you can see on this diagram, a CI like TeamCity is based on a server that we act more or less as a central control tower, let's say a leader of the orchestra, and some agents that are directly installed on specific machines that will act as builders. To summarize, you need to think about your needs. Do I need to build for iOS, for instance? So at least I have to have at least one agent on Mac. How long a build lasts, justifying, for example, a second machine in my pool. Using continuous integration in a mobile app development project offers several advantages. First, it reduces the risk of misunderstandings. Rapid releases provide an opportunity for product manager and marketing to engage more closely with the development process, avoiding, for example, unnecessary development you should do without these feedbacks. It also helps you to have tighter feedback loops for the developer. By having the opportunity to often build the code, you review a limited amount of code. You can also have continuous problem detection. For instance, when you integrate a new external library. The process breaks immediately and not at the end of the development process. Finally, CI will enhance the working processes by breaking down boundaries between development and operations. For example, having continuous external resource provisioning when you need extra DBs, environments, virtual machines, and containers. We can honestly say CI gives the whole team a better understanding of the project challenges. Continuous integration mainly offers faster time to market. The primary goal of a CI/CD pipeline, when you add a continuous deployment tool, is to deliver a fully functional software to users quickly and beyond everything frequently. The build process is no longer the hurdle you don't want to jump, as it used to be tedious and time-consuming. You can also standardize your path to go live, adding automation for builds, tests, environment creation, and deployments make each step consistent and repeatable. Having breaking it down in specific steps, you can keep optimizing each stage to make your process more efficient. Now let's talk about the first solution when it comes to app automation, Fastlane. What you might ask yourself when you first discover Fastlane is, what is it for? Fastlane is an open source tool that allows you to automate and ease a number of tedious tasks, such as managing screenshots, for example, certificates, launching unit tests, building applications, or deploying your application to the Apple and Google stores. So how does it work? When you use Fastlane, you basically have to take into account two important files. The first is app file. It's a file containing all the information about your Apple or Android accounts. The second is fast file. It's basically a file written in Ruby describing for each platform, iOS and Android, the available lanes. By the way, a lane is a succession of actions. You can see this more in detail in the online documentation of Fastlane. I suggest we now go through a very basic app file configuration file. As you can see, there are a few basic steps to help Fastlane figure out the task you want it to perform. First, you have to write down the bundle identifier of your app. In our example, it's com.genesis.myapp. In this very example, we want to deploy on both App Store and Play Store. So we have to give some basic credentials like Apple IDs or developer portal team IDs. That's basically defined once for all in a project. You see, it's pretty easy. Now let's focus on the fast file configuration file. As you can see, it defines different steps in order to build a particular target. In this example, we will focus on the iOS build, but it's pretty similar for Android. You just have to adapt with platform-specific values. The first thing we have to do is to define which is the default target, iOS in our case. You could, of course, set up a short description, but the first big thing to look at is to get the last build number and then increment it. After that, what we want to do is to give some instructions about the location of your project. So in our example, iOS/app/app.xcodeproj. As you may have noticed, we end by the build process And in our example, we upload the result to test flight so that our user can beta test. To complete our presentation, I will now show you live how we call Fastlane directly from JetBrains. By using such a tool, we can automate the entire mobile app build process and integrate into a larger package. For example, at Genesis, this allows us to launch tests once the build is complete, notify the team, for example, or even launch some backend infrastructure. So let me show you how it's working. For this, I hope you can see my screen. I will connect to TeamCity. I am currently connected in an existing project. As you can see, the first things I have to do is to define my build steps. So in my example, I will launch some Fastlane stuff directly here. So for this, I'm using a command line. And as I have shown you before, my server is just contacting an agent and asking him to perform different tasks. So in my example, I will just launch different Fastlane actions, like explained before, and ask this agent to build my application and give it back to me after that. So for this, I'm using a command line, but I can also use very different other build steps, including having some Docker stuff launched or using a Docker Compose. I can also launch some Ant scripts, do some FTP upload or whatever I want, launch some Node.js task or Gradle or very different things. I also have to set up my VCS. In my example, it's a simple Git. So I have to hook my project directly in TeamCity. What we can also have a look at when I have to perform this task, I have one compatible agent, in my case, Java 8_CMD6, and one is not compatible. That's because I have some requisite about these agents. For example, I need to build on this one on Ionic 6. So only one of my agents is fully configured to do that. So Java 8 CMD is a remote machine in my example. You see here, you have the IP address. In my example, it's a Linux machine. Of course, if I have to build for iOS, I have to use an Apple machine. And it's pretty much everything you have to configure before using directly Fastlane inside TeamCity. Sounds pretty simple. You can also, of course, trigger all this work directly using different triggers. For example, I can use an VCS trigger if something is changing in a branch or in a specific place of my source code. I can also schedule a build, for example, every day at noon or whatever, and am fully free to define different triggerization for this build. So I will go back to the presentation. So now we have studied Ionic plus Fastlane together. It's time to introduce you to Ionic's in-house CI/CD solution. So let me show you Appflow. Okay, so what is Ionic Appflow? As you can read it on Ionic's blog, Appflow is the official mobile DevOps platform built by the Ionic team. The main topic is to bring DevOps workflows to hybrid app developers. First thing you should notice is that you can use Appflow both with a web interface or using command line. depending on whether you want to use it on your own CI, for example, or standalone. Now let me introduce you to a basic Appflow workflow in a standalone approach. First, you have to log into the dashboard. Then you have to create or import a new app. After that, it's time to connect Appflow to your existing code versioning system, for example, like Git or equivalent. Note you have to set up the certificate part. We'll find all the necessary interfaces in Build Signing Certificates section. Finally, you have to add destinations, for example, Apple App Store or Google Play Store. And voila, pretty simple, isn't it? Again, it's much easier to do it this way than the old-fashioned way, don't you think? Think about the hours you have already spent setting up your build process or uploading the result to the stores. All that time is money and a lot of frustration you could have spared yourself. Using Appflow in conjunction with a CI makes sense if you need to deal with an extended ecosystem, backend, external services, databases, or scripts, for example. This way, when you start the deployment process, you can make sure everything is configured on the backend side, that you have the right version of the API you need to interface with, and that it is consistent in terms of version, for instance. If you deploy a new version of your mobile app, but it still uses an older version of the backend, it may generate major issues. As we will see a little later, building is not the only thing you can leverage with a CI. It is certainly interesting to have a quality test of your source code or build result, but also to trigger security audits and why not performance tests. To use Appflow, nothing could be easier. On the target machine, your agent, just copy-paste the following curl command. Of course, you will first need to install curl via Homebrew, for example, if you are working on Mac, to gain access to Ionic CLI, and that's it. You can then generate a personal access token in the Appflow dashboard. As a general best practice in TeamCity, please consider using TeamCity secrets. In other words, use environment variables or parameters and not directly the credential and other sensitive information. The personal access token you just obtained in the last steps definitely should be stored this way. In this example, we are showing you, let's say, a legacy approach to creating an iOS app, packaging it, and sending it to the Apple Store. The most up-to-date approach will be to use Ionic Cloud command. As you can see, you have to choose whether you want to use iOS or Android, and then define a build type. A build type can be ad hoc, App Store, development, or enterprise for iOS, and debug or, oh, sorry, I have some trouble with my computer. It's okay. Or debug or release for Android. You will also need to give the Appflow application. Oh, black screen again. Sorry. That's so. For an iOS build, it must be an App Store destination, and for a Google one, it should be a Google Play Store destination. So let's see if we can summarize everything in a real life example. Sorry, I have to have an extra slide. So finally, we use Ionic Cloud to deploy to the store. And as you can see, we just have to define the app ID, the build ID, and the destination name. So now let's see if we can summarize everything in a real life example. Of course, we won't trigger any builds or deployment tasks that might be far too long. And I'm not very good at playing air guitar to fill the gap. But it should help you understand how simple it could be. So let me switch again, this time on Appflow project. So as you can see, it's pretty much the same. And as you can see, we first use Fastlane in our project, and we now upgrade it to Appflow. So pretty much the same. I'm using a command line. The difference with Fastlane is I will directly use Ionic package in our example. For this, I just make sure that everything is installed. So in my example, I will simply install through npm the Ionic CLI. If it's already installed, no trouble. If it just skip this line. And after that, I'm using, as you can see, these parameters and not directly the credential. And I just launch my Ionic package build for Android in this example. So pretty simple and exactly the same. You can define some triggers. You have all, in my example, 2 agents that are qualified to build. I have 2 machines, CMD5 and CMD6, because it's not in this project, I don't need a specific version of Ionic, so I can build on both machines. So let's go back to the presentation. Okay, I hope you are still with me as we now tackle the last part of the presentation, improve the overall quality of our deliverables using CI/CD. When it comes to quality, obviously we all think about bugs, but that's often just the beginning of the journey. Sure, code quality can have a major impact on software quality and therefore on the user's experience. But other aspects can definitely be improved by achieving a good level of quality, mainly team productivity. It is much easier to work peacefully on a well-developed, well-structured, and well-commented code. Quality management will help you achieve this goal and, more importantly, maintain it over time. This is why it's also much easier to collaborate. Everything is precisely at the right and expected place in the expected shape. Code quality can have a major impact on extensibility. In other words, the ability you have to push you up much further by adding new features. Maintenance is also clearly a big deal. If every single bug or evolution takes days or even weeks to manage, you should ask yourself if you are not working on some spaghetti code. Finally, I really believe performance must be taken into consideration. So we can ask ourselves, how can we do that? A good option is to trigger a few performance tests, for example, on external testing facilities, just to ensure your app is not just running on the latest mobile flagships, but also on a given subset of terminals. The subset can be defined on the basis of horsepower of the CPU, for example, but also basing on the operating system and the version of the operating system. So let me just give you a few recipes. Sorry, I have again troubles with my screen. So just go back. Sorry. So let me just give you some recipes based on our own experience at Genesis. For example, using a tool like SonarQube, quality scanner, or equivalent could be a good option. It helps you to automate static code analysis, not to be confused with some dynamic testing like performance test, and to get some good metrics about code verbosity or dead code, for example. But you will have to define your own rules. When you first start a tool like SonarQube on your code, it will shoot you so many warnings and advices that you could consider that being a developer is not the best you should do in your life. But don't panic. Some advices are surely to be taken into account, but you have to fine-trigger the tool. Having everything in green in such a tool is pretty much impossible. It is up to you to define what is acceptable and what is not, or what you could live with in the short term because there is some technical debt, for example. Lastly, a golden rule about quality. Don't consider if it's building, it's okay. 50 lines of code just to display hello world will be built, but it's obviously not the best approach in terms of quality. Finally, security checks during your CI/CD process is also a good option. A very common motto would be, when it comes to security, don't suffer bad news, anticipate them. Security should be built bottom up at the very beginning of your project and not when you encounter problems, or even worse, when your entire application is at risk because someone has access to your user database, for example. You should really consider using a dependency checker. You have certainly heard recently that big mobile apps were at risk just because of a small external library. It is pretty impossible to check manually every single dependency, so use automated tools. So now it's time to wrap up and summarize all the things we have been through in this presentation. First, CI/CD is a central tool on an app development process, not something optional, even on smaller projects. It must be an habit, a part of your standard project kickoff. Secondly, CI/CD is not just a matter of time to market improvement. It is the foundation on which many other things can be built. And best of all, you can reuse most of your work from one project to another. Overall quality, ability to maintain, or even performance are also very important to improve the perception of quality and make your daily life easier. So join the club of relaxed mobile app developers who rely on their CI/CD and not just on their own experience or own luck. Thank you for your attention. I hope this presentation was clear enough. Sorry again for the troubles I had with with PowerPoint. We will now switch to the Q&A session. And for this, I will ask my colleague Frederic to perhaps to introduce himself and to answer all your questions you can have having watched this presentation. Thanks again.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. My name is Frederic. I am a manager at Genesis. I have a solid background on development, Java development and web development. I do DevOps on a daily basis now. That's why I'm taking over Laurent to answer the Q&A session. So please feel free to ask what you want. Please don't be shy. Go ahead. Okay. So first question, how long it takes to deploy a CI/CD tool? It's really a hard question. It depends really on your need, on your needs. I would say, based on my experience, you can achieve that on 2 or 3 days top, but it's not the most important. The most important things when you want to achieve this is to find out what on your process of building could be done by a CI and what could not be done on the CI. So you can identify the task that should be done in a different way. You have also you should also list all the piece of software you need to achieve your build, so you will know if you are OS dependent or not, if everything can be done by an agent. If I can give an example, if you have to build an iOS app, you need the Apple environment ecosystem to do that. So you will have to install your agent in macOS. This work is very important just to help you figure out what is the best configuration for you, and it will help you find out what are your weaknesses on your building process. So we have a question from Krishna. Hello, Krishna. Can we use Appflow without Ionic for React Native apps? Yes, you can. You just have to have an Appflow account. As you have seen on the presentation, you have to create your app, to configure everything, and then you're good to go. There's another question from Edgar Alonso. So is it possible to build iOS apps with TeamCity or Appflow? Yes, absolutely. With TeamCity, you can you have the choice. If you wanna use Appflow, it's the easy way to build iOS apps. If you want to integrate Appflow on your CI/CD, your own TeamCity server, is it possible with the CLI command as Laurent showed you on the presentation?
Yeah, but again, it's much easier to do it with Appflow. You just if not, you have to set up by yourself an agent on a Mac, and to set up everything you need to build, including Xcode and so. So yeah, it's 2 options, and you have the easy way and you have the in-house way, in fact.
Okay. We have another question from Orden. Sorry if I pronounce it bad. TeamCity need to integrate with Appflow, right? And the app must be integrated with TeamCity through Bitbucket, for example. Yes, you have to have your app available on a VCS, Bitbucket or GitHub or what you want. And you have to connect your TeamCity to this VCS. Then TeamCity need to integrate with Appflow. The TeamCity doesn't need to integrate Appflow. You just need to use the CLI, the Appflow CLI. So your agent, you just have to install the CLI on your agent, and you will be able to use it through your building steps. Okay, there's another question from Kevin in French. I will try to translate. He says Fastlane could be a solution. So for deploying mobile app on this company. So yes, you could rely your deployment, building, and so on Fastlane. It's open source. You can use a lot of actions. You can also develop your own actions if you need. So Fastlane is a good solution. Appflow is a great solution too. It's the starting plan, the basic plan starts at $499 per month. If you compare that with the time saving, I totally think it's worth it. Sorry, I'm reading all the questions. So question from Abey, how do you automate screen UI test to application display on different size? It's a hard question. The automation we use, just to be clear, we use a tool called Browser Stack to test our application on multiple devices, and this tool can be reached by API. So you can automate testing on this tool, but we've done that. It's not easy to achieve. So I don't know if I answer your question, but it's something it can be done, but it's a long path.
Yeah, perhaps we can help you with this point outside the conference. Just perhaps give Diana your coordinates, and we will contact you for perhaps to share our experience about this specific point. It's not easy, like Frédéric said it before, to interface with tools like Browser Stack, but you can definitely do it in one step, for example, of UCI, and that's really great. If you can launch some external test during the build process, it's fantastic, in fact. So you have some reports that come in with all your application tested on very different versions and browser version and even on different versions of operating systems and languages, for example.
Okay, thank you, Laurent. We have another question from Abey. How do you handle deploying multiple versions of the same application? For example, current version hotfixes and next version release. That's pretty easy. If you in TeamCity, for example, you can have multiple configuration build for one application. You just have to configure the VCS on the right branch, and so you can have a free configuration build, free job, let's say, The first one will target the production, the second one the staging, and the third the development branch, for example. And you can use this configuration as you want.
If you can still see my screen, for example, here I have a specific. So I'm in a mobile app in the iOS build, and I can create as many build configuration that I want. For example, I have this one, test flight and production, but I can create a new one. And like Frederick said it just before, you can have a different repository and add some specific parameters for this build configuration.
A question from Billy Allen. I am just starting with mobile app dev with the end result being Android and iPhone. For 3% team, do you advise starting with Appflow or using legacy workflow? For me, Appflow, if your business model is around only mobile app, Appflow could be the answer. It's easy to use. You spare a lot of time. So I would strongly recommend Appflow if you can. If you prefer host your CI/CD tools, it will cost the servers. It will cost you have to update, keep them up to date. You have to do the Fastlane part by yourself. So I would recommend, if you can, going with Appflow. It's easy. We have a question from Modestino. So Ionic package will build locally and deploy to App Store, and Ionic Cloud will build on the cloud and deploy to App Store. Ionic package is just a step where you on the agent, the application will be packaged. It's totally local. Nothing is deployed. You can do deployment with the good arguments of the CLI command. Ionic package only package, doesn't do anything else. Do you have a specific tool to test your security for your app? Yes. Question from Kevin. Yes, we have. We use it's called WASP. WOSP. And we use it to check the security, the dependencies on our dependencies. Oh, sorry. We check the dependencies of our application. So I don't know if you can show the TeamCity jobs. Maybe I can show.
Just to add a few words, Frederick. It really depends what you are testing. If you test directly, for example, JavaScript, you can use tools like Snake or ByteSafe dependency checker. They go through different things. If you want to check, for example, NPM packages, you can use NPM audit directly. And yeah, it really depends what you want to check, and if it's only the dependencies or your source code or whatever. Yes, I can go back to the app. in TeamCity, Frederic? What do you want to show?
Give me a second.
Do you want me to go through the dependencies or?
Yes, let me send you a link. You know, the breadcurve project.
I'm not sure I have access to this.
Let me send you the link. Just a second.
I have no access, Frederic, to this project.
Okay, sorry. It's not important. For the mobile app, we use WASP to check the dependencies, and it gives you back a list of problems, so you can react very soon before launching in production. There's another question. Can we implement the Sonar Cube in Ionic Appflow? I haven't tested it. I don't. If you don't mind, just if you don't mind giving your information contact to Diana, I will give you the answer back as soon as possible. Since I haven't tested it, I don't want to answer yes or no. You're welcome, Krishna. There's another question from Abhi. Do you have gated approval for stage deployment? Sorry, could you maybe rephrase a bit your question? I'm not sure to understand. The approval steps is something outside the DevOps part. It's when you deploy, there's an approval step, and for example, for test flight, you have to wait until the approval comes. I don't know if it answers your question.
It's not faster. In fact, you don't have faster approval. You just have better chance to be approved because nothing is missing. Tools like Appflow helps you to be sure sort of to-do list to do I have the right icons, do I have the screenshots in the package, have I defined the user rating and so the audience for my application, and so it just more, you just have to consider this as a sort of big to-do list and help before submission to the approval. But you just have better chances to be approved. It's not faster, in fact.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow, we had so many great questions. Thank you, Frederic and Laurent, for being on top of those. For anybody, in case if we missed your question, or if, as Laurent and Frederic said earlier, if you wanted to go ahead and request a follow-up, we will get to your question, certainly. We have your information, and so we'll make sure to follow up with all of you accordingly so that we can continue this amazing conversation and make sure that your questions are answered. So now I just want to say thank you so much for everyone for attending us today. Thank you to our friends and trusted partners from Genesis. I have just a few announcements here on my end as we're wrapping things up. So first of which, I wanted to go ahead and share a post-event survey here. I'm going to be linking it in the chat. If you do have any time at all to go ahead and answer the survey, go ahead and give us your feedback. This is an amazing opportunity for us to hear what you like about our events, what we can do better next time, topics that you'd like to hear from us in the future, anything like that we absolutely appreciate. So I've linked that in the chat below, and that'll also be included in the post-event email. So I just want to say thank you in advance if you have any time to fill out that information. And another thing that I wanted to call out here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just to showcase some really exciting news. I can get my screen to share. Okay, well, hopefully you can see that. So coming up, we are producing our 3rd annual Ionic Conf event. This is an event that is a completely virtual experience. It's dedicated to recognizing and celebrating our amazing community of incredible Ionic users and open source contributors. This is a free one-day virtual event. Our registration page is there as you see it on screen at ionic.io/IonicConf. So if you go ahead and enter your email, you'll be registered, and we would absolutely appreciate if you're able to come and join us. It'll be an amazing day of informative sessions, lightning talks, and we actually do have our CFP open. If you reference that right-hand corner there at the top, it says apply to speak. So if you have any ideas actually for our conference, any session ideas or topics that you want to go ahead and submit, please do so because it's open. But I definitely wanted to call that out and share that with the group. We're incredibly excited for that, and that's coming up May 25th. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you again to everybody. Those of you that stayed around till the end. Amazing Q&A session, amazing presenters, and thank you so much again to Laurent and Frederic for joining us today. We'll see you again on the next one. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.